Today, we're getting the insights and wisdom from an incredible award-winning composer and entrepreneur, Mike Patti. Mike not only has music in film and television, but world-renowned games like League of Legends and StarCraft 2, as well as writing music for theme parks like Walt Disney Resorts. Mike is also the founder of two companies, CineSamples and Musio. Mike, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great to meet you.
With all of the work you've done, is there anything that holds a special place in your heart?
Oh, good question. Well, I would say I was just down in Orlando with my son, who's 13, and I got to take him to this show that I did 8 years ago. It's this thing called Movie Magic, which is it plays every night at the Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's like a projection map show, and the whole thing is kind of an homage to film scores. So about half of it is like rearrangements of some of my favorite film scores, like Indiana Jones and The Rocketeer. There's some Star Wars in there. But then I was asked to actually write a whole new piece of music for the beginning and the end and some stuff in the middle. And that was just like a huge thrill for me. And I did it 8 years ago, and they like usually shows at Disney World, they don't last for longer than maybe 3 years, 4 years max. And this has been going for 8 years. So I don't know. It definitely was cool, and tend to be there with my son for him to see that and hopefully think I'm somewhat cool. I don't know. We'll see.
Does work like that, does that pay royalties over time?
Yeah, there's some ASCAP, but it's not anything near, broadcast television or, international performances from like box office in other countries. It's not much, but it's kind of like for those kinds of things, you want to charge kind of a decent upfront fee.
Yeah. Normally, film, music, games, those come to mind. How did you get into this kind of resort and theme park stuff?
Yeah, So I grew up in Long Island, and in Long Island, there's a huge musical theater world because we're so close to Manhattan and Broadway and everything. And as a kid, as like a teenager, 17, 18 years old, I was a pianist. So I was doing a lot of musical theater productions and showing up and trying to be a music director on a lot of these shows because I had a pretty decent sight reading ability. But I met Roger Butterly, who became a good friend of mine through that world. He was also in Long Island doing a lot of this stuff. But like, we became close, but then we kind of like 10 years later, 15 years later, he got this job as senior music producer down in for the parks. And he got the job, and he gave me a call right after he got the gig and said, "Hey, can you help me with this little thing I got going on?" Which was like a fast little arrangement they needed by, the next day. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll hook you up." They needed a mock-up or something. It's like for Frozen or whatever it was. And I did it real fast, and everyone was super happy. I did it fast. I did it cheap, and I guess it was somewhat decent. And he just kept calling me back. And then like my name kind of started to get passed around to all the other music producers down there. There's about like 8 of them. And I started doing a whole bunch of stuff. A few big projects, but most of it's kind of like those medium-sized things that you don't really even notice or hear about. But there's a ton of things that they need music for down there. It's kind of would blow your mind. I've been very fortunate to work with them.
I guess that really emphasizes the importance of networking and knowing people.
Yeah, it's just like you never know where things are going to come from. I mean, the random people that that you think really won't. It's like, they might go on to do incredible things, and then hopefully bring you along with them. So.
One of your projects that's near and dear to my heart is StarCraft 2. I was curious what your experience was like there and how you got that gig.
Yeah, again, and it's another one of those things. Like Jason Hayes was just a good friend of mine, and also I know he used CineSamples, so like that's kind of how we connected. And I probably could look it up. Like it's very likely emailed me about a question about like Cinebrass or something. Like, how do I get the articulations to work or something? And I helped him out. But then I helped with Blizzard on a few little small things, like helping with finish some cues and helping out the people there. But then Jason got this project as being sort of the lead of for StarCraft Legacy of the Void, StarCraft 2, and we kind of worked on it together. And it was really fun. It was kind of like, it was like the most fun experience because we collaborated together. It's I like doing scores on my own, but like when you get to like collaborate, especially with like your friend, it's just like we actually had duplicate sessions. So he could send me what he was working on and I can kind of like work on it, add cool stuff, and then send my DP session over to him, and then he could open it up and it would play, and we would work that way. So it was kind of like, it was really co-scored together. And yeah, it was super fun. And then like, this was back when, I don't know if they have the budgets anymore, but Blizzard would have real good orchestra budgets. And so we did that one up at Skywalker Ranch. Big orchestra, choir, all that stuff. And getting to hang around George Lucas's facility for a few days was pretty awesome. That was a while ago now. That's like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Cool project. I mean, yeah, it's like one of those like, why am I here? This is cool. Yeah.
I heard you say you had 5 kids. I was curious if any of them are interested in music. Do you teach them anything?
Yeah, my oldest for sure. She's into piano and composing a little bit. She started off more like learning by ear and that sort of thing. And my 14-year-old is into music a little bit. But actually, like my third kid, he's really into game development, and he's about to launch a game on Steam using the Unreal Engine, and he's completely doing it on his own. And he's like, it's amazing what you can do. It's like, because all the resources are on YouTube. Obviously, you can ask ChatGPT for advice, like how do I, do this, and he's just like kind of going all in on it. And he actually he knows, because I'm right here. His little office is right there, and I will write music for him for his game. So he hasn't paid me yet, but that's okay.
That's amazing. I was curious, how over the years has your process changed, and what's that like when you're composing?
My process is pretty similar. I think I've been doing it for about 20 something years now, and I used to do every single thing myself, like really getting like super nerdy about the mock-up and really focusing on making sure every articulation was perfect and realistic and all of that. To the point now where I kind of do more sketching and work with people that actually, frankly, are a bit better than me in terms of making samples to sound real. So that's what I do, is I will sketch things out. I will have everything, like all the details and information there, and then send it to somebody who can help kind of flesh it out. Because on some of these projects, there's not enough time, and it's not an efficient use of your time, because you're taking meetings. I've talked about this, like there's sometimes you're the person in the hot seat, and sometimes you're helping the person in the hot seat. And lately I've been in the hot seat, and there's so much more mental load to do that. You're navigating meetings with lots of people, and sometimes it's like it takes you away from just doing the detail work. So anyway, yeah, so I would say I probably focus less on the details and more on the bigger picture stuff, and that's worked pretty well recently.
Do you ever have interns or composing assistants working for you?
Not recently. Right now, the guy that I work with the most is Noah Taylor, who is a phenomenal orchestrator and an arranger, and very good at doing mock-ups. So we kind of like, he's been helping me out a lot on stuff. But yeah, no, I haven't needed I've never had an assistant ever. I've never quite. Maybe it's just my own problem. I don't like to have someone else do that stuff. Like, I can get my own coffee. I don't know. Like, I mean, I've hired people to do things, but like, I prefer to hire people that are like really qualified and like just help get the job done. And someone who might be right out of school, I'd be happy to help, but it's more of like an internship thing. I love doing that, but that's not something I would you know, I wouldn't give them too much responsibility.
I was curious, if you were to start over today and get started, would you go to university again?
Ooh, controversial question. I would say I'm super grateful for the education I got. Like I I grew up in Long Island, and I went to Hofstra University, which it's not known for a music school, but I had a lot of opportunities because I was the only composition major, and they had an orchestra. They had a really good wind band, and I was able to get some pieces performed by these groups as an undergrad. I can convince the professors against their will to do it for me, at least to get, if not a performance, at least get the group to, give me 10 minutes with them just to sight read my thing that I made. So I had a lot of opportunities that I don't think I would have had if I was at a more prestigious, quote, prestigious school. And just being in Long Island, and there's a real arts scene in like the New York metropolitan area that I haven't really seen anywhere else. So it was a unique place to, just get good at piano and that sort of thing. A lot of opportunities to make a living, I think, as a pianist as well. So, but no, I would say, to answer your question, today it's probably a little different because the cost of everything is so incredibly high. And there are so many resources now. Like, you can learn what you need to learn on the internet. Just like I'm like watching my son learn coding and everything, and he's really good for a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. So I don't know. I would say there's no guarantee of employment with an undergrad degree. No one actually really looks at no employers look at your degree, really. They're like, can you get the job done? That's especially in our world. So I didn't really answer your question, but I would say it's very expensive, so be cautious. You don't want to be stuck with a lot of loans that you may not be able to pay off quickly,
So, talking about the tech and the coding aspect, I heard you had started for computer science, right? And you switched into music. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started off as a computer science major, and with a music minor, and because I love computers, I was really into that. I had a pretty good math mind, but I found out that USC had this film scoring program, and they needed you needed to have a music degree. This is back in like 2002, and so I switched my major to music major and computer science minor, and my parents were supportive of that. Thankfully, they were cool with, because I guess they saw that I was like, let's say, mildly obsessed with music, and they're like, this, he wants to do this so bad. So, I finished with a degree in music and music theory composition, and then moved on to go to USC, which is a great program. At the time, was fantastic. I really enjoyed my 1 year there. It's cool because you get to you get your stuff performed by LA studio musicians, and you're working with some of these legends, like David Raxon came to a class of ours. Lalo Schifrin was there for one of our scoring sessions. I remember we did one session. It was right after a Jerry Goldsmith Star Trek session. I was like, at the Paramount scoring stage M. I don't know if you guys remember that. If you remember that, that was a legendary stage, and it's unfortunately closed. But yeah,
I've heard that USC is one of the top schools that people.
It's great. It's great because you're already in LA and you're connected with. It's also a great film program over there. So if you're diligent, you can connect with a lot of the students there. But you don't need to go to the film scoring program in order to connect with film students. Just walk over there and or join some of the message boards and just say, hey, I'll score your student film.
My story was kind of the opposite. I went for music composition around 2004 at University of North Texas, and I was really disappointed with their program. They didn't talk anything. It was nothing like a film scoring degree. It was like avant-garde, water splashing, and crow sounds. And I was just like, I can't make a living with this. So I switched into computer science,
Yeah,
and went with a tech career. Have you noticed that a lot of programmers are also into music?
I've noticed there's a lot of people that have like a more of a technical left brain kind of mindset, get into game music. Like music production is not this. It's not as I think there's a perception that it's more like this super super artsy thing that you just like you close your eyes and then all of a sudden you're inspired and you make this amazing piece of music. I mean, maybe sometimes that's the case, but like 99% of the time, it's like, I got a gig, I got to do this thing. Let me, you know, I've got this like backlog of stuff that I've done or like music theory that I know. I'm going to now apply it. It's this LLM that's been trained on a lot of data. Now I'm going to create something new. But I think humans are, well, it's all a discussion we can have. But, I think humans are set apart from machines. I don't know, controversial take. I think that we have something special to offer that a machine cannot replicate in the fullest sense. But I've been very much in that whole AI world as well, so I'm sure you have too. I know.
Yeah, I want to ask you a couple questions about that in a
Yeah,
second. The the music and the programming stuff, I've looked into this a lot, and there's actually a lot of research, mostly around how language develops. Like they both use the language center of your brain, is what they found. About AI, I saw you had built some pretty cool tools using AI. Has your thoughts on that changed over time? And
No, I mean, I definitely I jumped on board the whole vibe coding train because I mean I studied computer science, but I never got good at coding. I do basic level stuff, but this was just really fun because it's like you can literally just using Cursor or Windsurf or whatever, like you can build your own app pretty quickly, like a Python app, which is something that would take a pretty decent engineer, a couple of days to build. You can do it in about 30 seconds. And you can just like tweak it on the fly. And I was just messing around, seeing just to see, well, what is like. I think it's important for all of us to see what technology is doing these days. Like to ignore it or put our head in the sand is a foolish mistake, or to simply just complain about it. There are good sides to it, which I think some of the coding stuff is really really fun. And I built like a MIDI controller that uses your webcam, so you can just like you can put up the first, the third, and the root and the fifth of a chord with one hand, and then like you can play CC1 values with your left hand, and it worked pretty well. I was like surprised, and I made that in like half an hour. So that kind of stuff I think is going to be really fun because if everybody has that ability to just sort of build the thing that they want or the thing that they need for the job that they're doing, that's going to make us all extremely efficient. And so I don't know. I think that productivity for society is going to just like exponentially grow. Of course, the downside is we have some of these things that, where these models are, especially like in the creative fields like music, is they're being trained on all of this data, but kind of against our wills. They're just doing it and then they're building multi-billion-dollar companies out of it. And there's a lot of legal stuff going on right now to decide where that's going to go. But I have a sense that it's just going to go in the direction we don't want, which is that these things are going to exist, despite all of the fighting. Suno, UDO, and I think that we're all gonna it's just gonna be another way for people to make music, because I think that humans want to be creative. Like this is like a fundamental truth. I think there's something there's a lot of joy that you get from just being creative and going through the diligence of like choosing the notes and doing all of that stuff and then saying, look at this thing I made. And at the same time, I think humans want to see humans do cool stuff. We want to see them make cool stuff. We want to see them be creative. So that's like, I don't think that's going away. At the same time, sometimes we just want like McDonald's. We just want to be able to I need some action music for this game I'm making. Give me it, go, and then you just throw it in your game or whatever. And, but my son is making a game and he has one rule: no AI. So that's why he's got to hire me. for the music.
I share a lot of the same
Yeah.
feelings about the AI. And speaking of the future, I wanted to talk about Musio, which I've heard you say, you're really trying to be forward thinking there on the future of things, and seeing how other companies like Adobe and Microsoft, they're all going subscription models. So it really makes sense. Even Splice is doing a rent to own kind of thing for people to get started. I was curious, what is the future of Musio? Do you have any big plans, or are you just trying to grow it at this point?
Yeah, well, we just announced yesterday the microphone positions. So the idea is we want Musio to both be accessible to professionals as well as people that are just getting started. And so I've been doing CineSamples for a long time, 17, 18 years. And it's very much for like the professional composer who has a budget of they have thousands of dollars to spend on these libraries. It's like, I need a new string library. Let me spend $800 on it. And there's people that do that. And that is a market you can go after. But I was just like, I saw that was kind of perhaps going away because there's so many music creators now that don't have that kind of a budget. And so how do we do that? How do we make these instruments, these contact instruments, more accessible? And also it gives, like, selfishly as a business, it's like much more flexible for us. We can, if we find a mistake, like, oh, the C sharp is a little bit flat in the flute, we can tweak it and post the update immediately, and you have it in your DAW. So it's stuff like that, like we could do with Contact. And it also allows all these other flexible pricing models. Like we can try subscription. I mean, I know like it's kind of like that's a 50-50 thing. There's people that hate it and there's some people that love it. So we're not going to ignore the 50% that still want that. But we offer the perpetual as well. And there are some exciting things that are going to be released later this year that the team isn't ready to announce yet. And I don't want to get ahead of them. But the future for Musio is looking really bright. And I think I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's when you build a company, you don't know what the heck the future is going to bring. But people seem to really, really like it. And that was my hope, is that people would get to just create music with this thing that we made. And if we can afford to exist as a company, it's a necessity. So we're still exist. I mean, I've run this company for 18 years. So it's like we have a track record. I don't see why we would be going away, I think we have easily another 18 years. So
Yeah, there's not going to be a shortage of people getting into music. Every day someone's turning 13 and getting they want to start
I think
making music.
what we're seeing is a lot more people. The whole world has changed. Like, I think we're moving away from our sights set on Hollywood and that whole like centralized way of creation. So like every kid wants to be a YouTuber. Everybody wants to make, because you can make everything you want from a decent PC. You can make a full like featured video game. You can make a movie. You can post it on YouTube. You can do all this stuff. And so there's that whole other world that I think we should try to serve those folks. And it's a different mindset. And I'm having to like kind of change my mind because I come from the whole like professional LA world. It's like a bubble. And so, but there's this whole other realm. And I think having kids gives you a little bit of an edge because you can see how they view the world and what they think is cool and where things are going. So
I was curious with both these businesses and all your composing work and a large family, how do you balance all your time?
Well, last year I made a decision I still own the company, but I made the decision to promote our marketing guy, Chris Hazel, to the top job position, CEO, and he's been doing a fantastic job. And I kind of needed to do that because it really was getting pretty difficult. You're trying to balance being a family guy and then also running a company and then also trying to do composing work. And I had to choose two of those, and I chose to do composing and family. So and it's actually, I think it's going to be better for it because the direction that the company has to go is a different mindset from the nerd composer mindset, which is me. And but Chris and the crew, they're younger and they really understand this broader music market better than I do. And so that's kind of I think so. It works in two ways. I can step aside, and also it's better for where the business needs to go. So, yeah.
It seems like it's what you have to do when a business grows. Like, you just can't do everything.
Yeah, you can't. You start off the business doing everything 100% yourself, and then you hire maybe your first contractor to help you with something. In our case, it was like, I'm not good at context scripting, so we found somebody to help us with that. And then it's like, oh, we need a better website, because the website we built was something I made, which was like, HTML, kind of cheap looking thing. And then you eventually you have these contractors, and you're kind of doing all this, and you're like, oh, I just need someone who could just do customer service. And I was like, all right, it's got to be kind of a full-time job. So you hire your first full-time person, and then you're like learning about, what does that mean? Oh, I have to pay them every week. Okay, I mean, obvious things that just like, obviously, like, I have to make sure I have enough money to pay that person every week. And then you're like, oh, there's payroll taxes. And then it's like, oh, but they're also paying taxes. And then it's like, oh, I need to do health insurance. Oh, yeah, that's right. And all these things you just learn because, I didn't go to business school. And so you just figure it out as you go. And I've made certainly plenty of mistakes that hopefully made me better. But yeah, it's in a much better place now. Like, it's a proper business now. When you're starting a business, it's scrappy, and you're just kind of like, you're running and gunning. You're just trying to get the product done and out there and stuff like that.
And they started as two separate companies, but now they're just one. CineSamples owns Musio. Is that right?
CineSamples, yeah. It's CineSamples is the company, and Musio is part of CineSamples. It's all one thing. Yeah, it's not two separate companies. The goal of Musio is to put CineSamples out of business, basically, kind of, because that's the future. You can't really do both of those. I think CineSamples will always have the contact products available somehow. We'll still need to figure out what we're going to do there. But you got to manage your time. Like, we can't service 50 contact products and also build a software product. So kind of the last 2 years, it's been all in on Musio. And that's why maybe some people have been like, hey, what's going on with CineSamples? It's like, yeah, well, CineSamples is over here. Look over here. It's Musio. Check it out, because we just released mic positions, and all the CineSamples stuff is in there. It's 99% identical to the contact products. So for anyone to choose to buy a contact version, they need a really good reason, I think. Maybe they just prefer contact for whatever reason. But I'm using Musio on a 2019 laptop, and I have my full template, every sound, thousands of sounds loaded, and it plays back perfectly fine. So it's super efficient. Anyway, sorry, I don't want this to be a commercial for Musio, but that's kind of like, just trying to get the word out on this thing.
Well, considering the perpetual license and the price of that, it's an incredible value.
Yeah. One of the things when we launched it, a lot of the most common thing was that it sounds too good to be true. Because most people are pretty skeptical. They're like, what's the scam here? I'm like, no, actually, it's just super inexpensive. It was intentional, though, because we wanted to, there's a lot of competition. So we wanted to just get this thing off the ground, and get as many people signed up. We were doing 30-day free trials. You didn't even, just put your email address in, download it, and you get all this stuff. So I think people started to realize, oh, it is quite good. So.
Yeah, I think capturing a large market share is incredibly important. I think it's a smart business move from my perspective, at least.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out, And the team is doing great.
How many people are working for you now?
It's a small team. It's a handful, 6, 7. And we have a few contractors here and there that come in and out. But we at our height we had about 14, 15 when we were really building Musio, and during the COVID days. So That's when Musio was built. It was like everybody from home, from Zoom. And then once Musio was built, we just kind of had to downsize a little bit, and it didn't have roles for user interface designers and stuff like that. So that's a tough thing too. It's like you realize, oh, I don't need these folks anymore. But we make decisions and keep the thing moving forward. But the team is great, and I'm excited for this thing.
When it comes to the libraries, was there any one that was particularly memorable or fun to record?
Oh, good question. I think, well, most of the stuff that we do, the Los Angeles, the Cinebrass, Cinestrings, and all of that stuff. Cinebrass was the first kind of union session, but then the union said they wouldn't do any sampling sessions anymore. This was back in 2011. And so we just started doing, most of those sessions had to be dark dates. So we're like doing these clandestine sessions, and, because the union said we couldn't do it. So we're like, well, okay, we're going to do it anyway. It's not going to stop us. So we just did all these sessions, and, having to be, a few of them we had to hire like security guards. It's ridiculous. Like what you have to do to hire people and do stuff. And we've paid millions, like we do residuals. We paid more residuals than what was even on the union contract. We paid millions of dollars to musicians over the years. And I don't want this to be about bashing anybody in leadership, but it was definitely, there's a lot of challenges there. But we, whatever, we managed to get everything done. That's why I kind of look at some of my my competitors, and they don't have any of those issues. My friends in Berlin and London and Australia, they can just record. There's contracts for that, and you can film and you can do all of that stuff. So that was like, we have some funny stories, which maybe I'll save for after our podcast recording. But yeah, there were some tense moments for sure to get stuff going. We're like, but we also were like, this was a time when we were really we pushed really hard to get scoring work to come back to LA. In 2012, 2014, there was a lot of work leaving, like all the Marvel movies, all these big stuff was all going to London. And one of the top contractors, everybody, and the musicians who are kind of our generation, we're all fighting to like make this happen. Let's get video game scoring back in LA. It was a lot of good movement that was happening, and it didn't really yield much fruit, unfortunately. And I hope that it still happens. It sounds like there's another push happening to get more scoring work to return in LA. But it's sad to see, because I think a lot of us predicted where that industry is, or where it would be, and that's kind of where it is now, unfortunately. Guys like Dennis Sands, I follow him. Dennis Sands is a legendary engineer who was he mixed in almost all of our stuff, and he's been signaling this call forever, like, hey, we got to do something about how can we make this a more business friendly environment, rather than feel like it's run by the mob or something. And there were some positive things that changed, but it's just still like a lot of headwinds. Yeah, that's probably a whole other podcast. But I love all my friends there, musicians who are really doing a lot of good stuff, and I really hope it works out. But we spent a lot of money trying to make things change for the better, and maybe I'm a little bit bitter about it, but it's okay.
Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share or plug?
Yeah. Well, well, this is so cool that you're doing this, man, and thanks for reaching out. And I'll be watching the rest of your stuff. Yeah. No, I just like follow me on X. Sometimes I talk about all sorts of different things. I post about what's going on with Musio, or I share my thoughts about AI or whatever random projects that I'm working on. And if I can answer any questions for people that are maybe getting started in this crazy business, my DMs are open, so feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help and lend any kind of advice. So,
Mike, thank you. It was great talking to you, learning from you, learning about you, and I wish Musio all the best success, and hopefully we'll keep in touch.
cool. Thanks, man.